Hey everybody, I'm sequential art aficionado Dan Unthan. Welcome to Doomcast. This week I got to interview one of my favorite comic book creators of all time. The guy behind PISTOLWHIP, Revolver, Dept.h, which is currently out and it's fantastic, Rye 4001, Exo Manowar, Mind Management, which is one of the most incredible accomplishments in the field of sequential art in history. And he works in all sorts of different mediums, not always just traditional pen and ink. And he also writes, and he writes very personal and incredible stories. His artwork is very personal, it's fluid, it has a very authentic and outsidery quality to it. And if you meet him at a comic book convention, he is the nicest dude you could possibly imagine. It's hard not to look at this guy as one of the greatest living American artists today, just in general, not just in the field of comics. That's really high praise, I know. But I love his work, and I'm thrilled to have gotten to interview him on the Doomcast. So, meet Matt Kindt. He totally didn't have to talk to me.
You totally don't have to speak to me, but it's awesome that you are. This is outstanding because you are responsible for so many things that I love. It's kind of hard to know even where to start. Mind Management is one of my favorite series of all time, and you're now working on two series with Dark Horse that are fantastic, Dept. H and Ether. So can you take me through what is the premise of Dept. H?
Dept. H is it's really just it's an underwater murder mystery in the deepest part of the ocean. So we follow Mia, who's our main character, as she goes down there to investigate who killed this person who, like, semi-spoiler, is her father. You know? And so the whole series is really set under the ocean in this small space as she's investigating, trying to figure out which one of these 8 characters did the crime.
So this book, and actually Grass Kings also, which is another series you're working on with Boom, a lot of your work kind of centers around family relationships sometimes, really very personal stories. Is there a reason for that, or is it just that's a compelling source of writing drama?
I think I don't know that I set out to do that. I think that that's something that's probably just important to me, as a human being, as relationships between parents and children and siblings, and I think that's just a theme that I've sort of graduated to, or I've been attracted to. Just I don't know. I think that I've been really lucky. I had parents that supported me growing up, and pursuing what I wanted to pursue and everything. And I had a daughter, and I was like, well, that's. I want to be that for her, and I think those are things you always kind of think about, Once you have a kid, you don't just think about, what it's like to have this kid and this responsibility and being a good father. I feel like for me, it sort of reversed my view of my parents. So instead of looking at my parents from my being their kids' point of view, looking at them, I look at them looking at me. And it's sort of
this must have been what they experienced.
Yeah, this is what it was like for you, and it's and I love that. I love those kind of shifts in perspective, and I think that's what's fun about writing comics and getting to sort of do what I want to do is sort of exploring that and having, even in Mind Management, it's without spoiling it, it's a father and daughter relationship, even though they're not father and daughter, and I think that you can. And it's almost as much about what a father and daughter relationship is or can be, even though what it is in that book isn't that. But it's all this stuff. It sounds super boring when you talk about it.
No.
But if you put spies with mind powers in it, or you put a murder under the deepest part of the ocean, then all of a sudden that sounds exciting.
Right, yeah, it's like a sort of dad and sort of daughter, but they're also able to manipulate people into doing things that they want.
Right. There has to be an explosion at some point, or I start to get bored.
Yes, or somebody gets cracked in the face or something like that. I was also going to ask, with shoot, I feel like I lost it in there. Somewhere, we started talking about family, and I lost what I was going to move on to next. As far as the creative process for building stories like these? Like, where do you start? Like, where do you find inspiration?
Everywhere, you know, like I read a ton of books and I do a lot of research on just different topics that are interesting to me, and I watch tons of movies and watch tons of television like everybody else, you know, and I find over time that I don't recommend books to people, because a lot of the books I like or I love are books that people are like, oh, this was so boring or so dry, or this doesn't make any sense, and I was like, well, I realized I don't read for entertainment. I don't watch television for entertainment. I'm watching it to get inspired or to get an idea. And
I think that's good though.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. I love it, and it's my favorite part of my job is the research part, you know. And a lot of times, like to me, I've realized where.
Sorry. Oh, it's on.
Yeah.
It's okay. You're all right.
Like I'll be reading a book. This is an example of like where some ideas come from. You're reading a book, and I'm like, oh, this is where I'm anticipating. As a writer, I'm anticipating where the writer is going with the book, and like with a character. And I'm like, oh, he's going to go here, and it's going to be awesome. And then it veers off. It doesn't do that at all. It does this other thing, and I'm like, oh, well, he should have gone this way and done this thing. But since he didn't do that, then that gives me an idea for a story or an element I can use to do my own thing.
So
you know?
you're like, oh, this is what I would have done, so I'm just going to go do it.
Right. It's just like a lot of ideas are just like a road that wasn't taken by somebody else.
Like, so where did Dept.h come from? Like, were you just like binge watching like Jacques Cousteau or like Life Aquatic, and you were like, well, what if somebody murdered Bill Murray in that movie?
I've loved submarines and underwater stuff like as a theme, like since I was a kid, you know. And
it's
so
terrifying to me. So I love it.
Yeah, I was gonna scuba dive as research for the book, and then I chickened out. I was like, well, I think I'll just read about it.
No, I do not like being in real ocean water.
I watched this documentary called World Without a Sun, and it's Jacques Cousteau, and it's like this underwater base that he built. And it's just this black and white documentary, and it's shot beautifully, and it shows like how the sky goes down and all the steps you have to do, and just the difficulty of going down to not even like the greatest depth there is, but just this medium depth, you know. And like the little base he goes in, it's really confined, and it's just this one guy and I guess the cameraman who you never see. So it's these two people in this really tight space. And I'm like, this is the most claustrophobic thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, what are these, like the submersible, like the teardrop submersible?
Yeah, and so it's like that was the inspiration really. I'm like, oh, I'd love to do a story set down there, but what do you do? And then to me, the easiest thing to do is you have a murder.
Yeah, well,
and now I'm immediately hooked. Right,
yeah,
right.
There's the whole, no, that's great. Like, and you're producing so much stuff. Like, it's actually driving me nuts because I'm trying to keep up with everything that you're doing. Yeah. I don't know, how do you stay so prolific? Because like I brought you a stack of stuff and you were like, oh, each of the stacks keep getting bigger and bigger. But you keep doing more and more stuff. Like you've worked for every major publisher and you've done tons and tons and tons of stuff.
Yeah. Like, the thing is, I don't know. I mean, if the ideas stopped coming to me, then I would probably slow down. But I always feel like I'm racing the clock, like I'm racing my death. You know, it's like how many books or how many stories can I get out, you know, before I die. I like have a checklist of like all these things I want to get to and like these ideas I'm excited about. And I know like the list never you check a couple off, you know, but it takes you like years to get those things done. But then by the time you've checked a couple off, there's like 10 more below it. So it's like this list that you'll never get to the bottom of. So it's fun, you know. I'm never bored, that's for sure.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, you could just like cross your arms and like kick back into a recliner because you worked on Frankenstein for DC, and dang it, that's like I don't know why they don't do more with that character, but that run was awesome, and I loved it way too much, and it should have stuck around for forever. But I love. So how many issues into Dept.h are you right now? You're like 5 for Ether, and then like 13.
So I think
14?
that 12 or 13 came out of Dept.h right now. I don't know what's actually out, but I'm drawing issue 16 now.
How far do you anticipate Dept.h going?
Well, it's like a 2-year project. I'm not saying exactly because I want to give myself the chance to like add an issue
to flesh it out,
or do, you know, I don't want to. I did it with Mind Management where I was like, it's 36 issues and I'm done.
Yeah.
And then I called that so early that
Do you ever want to go back and like add?
No, like it ended up working out, but the stress of making sure it worked out and like timed out right was so great that I was like, I don't want to ever do that again. I'm gonna give myself some leeway, you know. And I got to cheat a little bit with my management. There's a zero issue, and I did some web comics and different things, but and it was structured in a way where I had the backup stories. So it's like anything I felt like I couldn't get to in the main narrative, I had these backups that I could sort of thread into it. But with Department H, there's zero room for error, you know. And it being a murder mystery, like the inherent nature of that is like
you already
the payoff
yeah,
is the payoff is who did it, you know. So it's like that stress and that pressure is enough. And I don't want to. I'm gonna give myself as much or as little room as I need to get it done.
Can you just like make it like this giant sea turtle or a sentient octopus?
Yeah,
that, like,
would you be
it
happy
the
with
whole
that?
time?
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
if I would or not.
Let's make it like a 5-year series where it's a big turtle that did it. Let's see how that goes.
It turns out the turtle is actually her father. I don't know. Don't do that.
I feel like the key to a good mystery is one where it isn't dependent on who did it. The who did it is part of it, and that's the end, you know. But the key to it is like caring about the characters. To me, it's as much having you care about why it was done and who did it, and the people that are still alive, caring about that as much as like the who done it part of it. I think that's the key to a good mystery to me.
Well, yeah, and it's good that like I mean you've built all of that with like flashbacks because you actually care about the fact that her father was killed because of the relationship that they had, as complex as it is. But I don't know. Man.
No, I'm a fan of like procedural stuff, and I love like I've been binging Forensic Files for like 2 years, like just because I love the science, you know. But
it is yes.
But it's
crazy.
You gotta care about the characters, and you gotta. Hopefully, you're just like heartbroken by the end of this because you care about everybody.
It's an awesome series. I'm really stoked to see the way it wraps up, but don't wrap it up like way too soon. I really appreciate you talking to me for as long as you have. I'm stealing you from people who are really big fans of yours, but I am always going to pick up anything that you set your name to. I have since I picked up Revolver, so I really appreciate this. This is way too cool. Every time I get to see you at a con, you're the coolest guy. So thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
It's awesome. All right, thanks. Matt Kindt, talk to me. This is awesome. This has been a great weekend. Thank you very much.
No problem.